was really insightful was actually the win-lose. Like, I didn't realize, like, we talk about it in real estate all the time. Like, when I'm speaking to a homeowner, hey, look, I'm not trying to steal your house. Obviously, I need to buy the house at a discount in order to make a profit and stay in business. But I want to make a fair offer. I want to do what is a win-win. If it's not a win-win, then it doesn't make sense. That's like second nature. But when they started, and we'll get into it in a minute, what win-lose is all about, like that's like being a dictator. And it's like, okay, I got my way, but at the cost of you, man, that's where the dad guilt kicked in. Because how many
Any
times?
husband guilt in there? Or just dad guilt?
Just a little bit of husband guilt.
Hey, look, life is not easy. Anything good worth having isn't easy. But add to that the complexity of being an entrepreneur, being married, having children. We have done a lot of things right. We've made a few $1 million. We probably lost a few $1 million. We made some mistakes along the way. But one thing that we are really good at is relationships.
That's right. We have been together for almost 2 decades.
And we've been through hell and back together.
Yeah, we have. And we used to think that we were the only ones like us out there.
But especially in our entrepreneurial ventures, we started meeting other ride or die couples that were going through the exact same things that we were going through. And they kept coming to us talking about advice and looking for solutions and really ways to help their relationship thrive. So we just knew there had to be a tribe of us out there. There's no way we could be the only ones out there.
We are getting real and raw, guys.
That's what he said.
Oh my God, babe. From dating to marriage to kids and even sex.
Even how to fight the right way.
We're going to be committed to being open and honest with you because we believe in your relationship too. Welcome to the Ride or Die podcast.
What's
up, guys?
Everybody?
Of course, we're going to be right in sync today. We're thinking win-win.
Win-win.
So we went
This
back.
Is habit number what? 4.
Be proactive. Be in mind.
Habit number 4.
Habit number 4
of the 7 series.
I gotta sing the little song.
Stephen Covey's.
I really don't like to say the word hate very often, but I hated this lesson.
Why?
Mom guilt. That's why.
I loved it.
Mom guilt.
But I definitely.
It's a good solid reminder of every time you're a really shitty parent. And so, like, you know.
I actually said that in class after the video where they showed Stephen Covey and his son cutting the grass or whatever.
And he's so patient.
Yeah, I was like, serious dad guilt right now.
Did you go through everything like that in life where you were that patient? And I feel like it's easier for a dad to be patient than a mom. Or I shouldn't say it that way because that's very, like, these days, very incorrect way to say things. I feel like when there's the household provider and then there's the financial provider. So in our household, dad is the financial provider, mom is the household provider. For the most part, you know, we cross paths a little bit here and there, but, you know, I'm mostly about family and the house and the home. So I feel like it's harder for me to not feel that guilt because you only have a couple hours tops a day that you're around the kids and me to like nail it. So if you don't nail it, that's really on you. But I have like hours and hours and hours a day all week long with these children to mess up. And so I do get mom guilt about this stuff.
She does everything right. She's perfect.
Thank you, Brandon. But you know that is not true. I do my best. That's all I can do, right? So yeah, I felt a little bit of mom guilt this week. But then at the same time, I thought like, okay, so it was a reminder for me because funny enough, Max had like gone backwards a couple times. I hear you trying to be funny, man. Had gone backwards. He's like having a little meltdown at like bad, not a little, like a bad, but at least it's only one meltdown a day, which is weird because he hadn't done that in a while. And I was just kind of like, I was getting lost in it. I was getting irritated about it. I was getting so mad that he was doing it. And I was just completely shutting down, which is a total lose-lose. They talk about think win-win. So there's this quadrant. You lose-win, you win-win, you lose-lose, you win-lose, right? Depending on the scenario. And in that situation, it's a total lose-lose. He's unhappy. I'm unhappy. I shut down. I give up. He doesn't get what he wants. Everybody's losing. But I had to like when I sat in the class and I was reminded, it's nothing that I don't know. I was just reminded of this. And going into the class, I was like, I need to figure out something to get Max back on track. I need to just figure out what it is. This reminded me, it really starts with me. Like, duh, I need to just set the example for Max. I want him. It's like in marriage. Like, I just want you to figure it out sometimes. Like, why do I have to start it? Or it goes vice versa, right? Like, oh, I just want Sam to X, Y, and Z. Why doesn't she just do it? But sometimes it just starts with us. We have to set the ball in motion in order for the partner or the child to come back and start doing it.
It's part
with their
of
parent,
being
right?
a leader.
It is part of being a leader, and this is the leader in me, so that makes sense. So let's talk about this a little bit. You have something to put in here?
Yes. Win-win. We use that all the time. But what was really insightful was actually the win-lose. Like, I didn't realize, like, we talk about it in real estate all the time. Like, when I'm speaking to a homeowner, hey, look, I'm not trying to steal your house. Obviously, I need to buy the house at a discount in order to make a profit and stay in business. But I want to make a fair offer. I want to do what is a win-win. If it's not a win-win, then it doesn't make sense. That's like second nature. But when they started, and we'll get into it in a minute, what win-lose is all about, like that's like being a dictator. And it's like, okay, I got my way, but at the cost of you, man, that's where the dad guilt kicked in. Because how many
Any
times
husband guilt in there? Or just dad guilt?
Just a little bit of husband guilt.
You don't think you do anything wrong in our marriage.
I have had way more practice. I have had way more
Perfect.
practice being a good husband than I have had being a good dad. So
that's true.
The dad guilt was strong. And how many times do we tell our kids, like, clean up?
You do a lot of things right in the marriage. You don't need to feel a lot of husband guilt.
You don't got to tell me, but thank you. I know.
Well, I'm making sure you knew because I just said you don't feel any husband guilt. Like, it's kind of an ass comment to make. Sarcastic.
But the win-lose, clean up the playroom, pick up your toys, pick up your clothes.
Right now, I don't care. Like those things, like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I was like, I do that all the time. I get
dying inside.
The job done. But with them crying at the end of it, they lose. I got what I wanted, but ultimately I lost.
But where is the balance? Because this is seriously where I struggle every day on these decisions. Where's the balance? Because for me, this was a little challenging when the person leading the class is saying, like, you gotta think win-win and you gotta think about everybody's feelings. And I'm not a big feelings person. And I told the class that, like, I feel, but I tend to bottle it up inside. So, thinking win-win. I'm a parent. Sometimes I just think it does need to be, I say you do, no questions, like we're
my way or the highway.
Well, sometimes I feel that way. We're parents. Like, our job is to responsibly raise these children to be responsible. And how do you teach them to be responsible if they say, I don't feel like cleaning ever? And, at some point it's like, no, you are Peyton, you're 6 years old. You can learn how to clean. Like, you can clean up after yourself. I am home a lot. I don't like looking at their mess every day. I want it done. And I've explained that to them 80 different ways, and they still just don't want to clean. It's a chore. Like, who wants to do chores? I'm not saying they have to enjoy it. I'm just saying they need to go do it. And I've looked at it for 3 days. I've let it go, and now it's time. But they'll still fight it. So where is that? Because that's where I struggle. Where is that, like, you think win-win, I'm not going to bribe them with candy every time. Sometimes it's just, this is your role and responsibility in the house. I got mine. I'm not complaining every day I'm making your lunches. And you know what I mean? So where is that balance where literally things like that could put me over the edge? They could make me go from right there to like cray town. And like, where's that balance? Where do we find that balance with this? Because this was the part that I was struggling with on this one. In real time. Well, I didn't have an answer. I just said, sometimes it's just the way it is. Sometimes they have to do what I say for them to do. And they didn't have an answer. They were just like, well, and I was like, yeah.
No, it's practice. And sometimes very rarely turns into almost never, right? The more we practice this.
No,
yes.
Don't tell me that.
So they started the class this week with a video of Stephen Covey and his son doing this like exercise. So
Oh yeah.
this
Okay. You're
this
right. I
this
got
is
it.
kind of like going to set the tone for all the insights that and lessons that came this week. So here's how it is in a perfect world. Steven's outside, takes his son outside, and they're looking at the lawn, and they're looking at the neighbor's lawn. His lawn has got a little bit of trash on it. It's turning brown, kind of looks shabby. And then they look at the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor's yard is green and clean. And so Steven starts asking his son basically like, how does their yard look compared to ours? And what do you notice about it? And how do you think they keep it clean? And how do you think they keep it green? And he's answering, and he's giving him suggestions because he's a young kid, right? He's like, do you think you could spit on it a lot, or you could water it, or you could set up sprinklers? And he's giving him all these examples. So he's helping him kind of realize what it's going to take in order to have our yard look like the neighbor's yard. He's letting his son discover it first. He's not just telling him the answers throughout this whole exercise.
Right.
And so, long story short, he winds up saying, basically, you want our lawn to look like the neighbor's lawn, and basically, here's your job. Do you want this job? Basically, do you want to take ownership of helping keep the yard green and clean? He agrees, and then what?
He sits back. He says, if you need help, let me know, but this is your job
he
now.
makes an agreement that he's going to water the lawn.
Right, and then it goes to shit.
Every day
he's
gonna clean up.
It's getting boring.
He's gonna clean up the trash. Okay, so they make this agreement, and his dad says, I'll help you when I have time, but you're owning this. And there was a big part there about who's judging the work. That was really important. Do you remember that? He was saying so his son was saying that, how do you know if you've done a good job? No, it's not someone else telling you whether you did a good job. You own this job of keeping the yard green and clean, and you're the boss, basically. He said, you're the boss, and you're the only one who can judge it. I'm not going to tell you if you did a good job or bad job. This is your job, and you own it. And they agreed on it. And then a day goes by, a week goes by.
You come home from work, the lawn's getting worse. There's more trash in the yard. It's getting browner. Grass is getting longer. It's just looking crappier and crappier every time, basically. While the neighbor's yard looks beautiful still.
Meanwhile, put yourself in this situation. Steven's like boiling. Like, he said he was going to do it. I'm being patient. I'm letting him do it, because the second you do it for them, you've taken it. Now it's win-lose, right? Because you've taken it away from them. And so he boils and boils and boils. And then finally it's a Saturday, and Steven, the dad's got a little bit of time, and
he says he's going to have a check-in with his son.
Let's go walk the yard and see how good you've done, even though he knows he's done terrible. And and so they go walk out on the door, and he gets to the step, and the son just starts like crying, basically. And what did he say?
Because he was outside playing all week and hanging out with his friends. He just basically said like,
it's too hard or something.
Something like that.
And he's like, it's too hard. In his head, he's like, too hard. You haven't done anything. You literally have not done anything.
You haven't even picked up a piece of trash that came with you. And it's silly, it's like a funny video where there's like literally chunks of trash. Like, who leaves their yard like that? Not Stephen Covey, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, they sit down and they talk about it, and they realize that, not only did he not ask, the dad reminded him, I said I would help when I have time, and I have time right now. Would you like to go work on this together? And the son's like, yeah. And so they go and they start picking up the yard together, and then magically everything just fixes itself.
He helps him like the following week a little bit. And then he said by like the third week, he was doing it himself without needing to be reminded.
Okay.
And here's why, because the son finally basically signed the contract, is what he was saying, right?
Right.
He bought in. If at any point, if Stephen had taken it away from him or punished him because he said he was going to do something, he didn't, the whole thing kept going back to like, not am I proud of you, it's like, are you agree that you're the boss and this is your job?
Do you
want to be
feel
the
like
boss.
you're doing a good job at this?
And when he finally bought in, that's when it's a lesson that'll stick forever, because when we do the win-lose and we take it away, and basically the kids, we're there, right, to solve the problem every time. Win-lose. I'll clean up the clothes. I'll just do it. It's easier.
I don't.
When they're 18 years old.
You do that. I don't do that.
Yeah. When they're 18 years old.
Now they're expecting mommy or daddy to come behind them and pick up their clothes and do their laundry.
Right. Exactly.
Actually, I can think of somebody that has done that with their child. Totally.
So they have to be the judge.
Yeah.
And it has to be their idea, which is something that we know in sales. You know, sales is all about influence. Leadership is all about influence.
Yeah.
And influence is not getting someone to say yes. It's getting them to say yes and think it's their idea. Right?
Yes. That was a fun one to master when we started doing that in sales. Can't tell you how many times in our business I would put C's in your head and then let it be your idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, in all seriousness.
Ditto.
Mm-hmm, I'm sure. Everything's my idea. Are you kidding? I'm just kidding. So anyway, they say you're in high courage when you share your ideas and opinions with confidence. You're not threatened by honest feedback. Well, you married the right person, because I'm about as honest as it comes when it comes to feedback. You acknowledge other people's ideas, and you make sure all family members have a chance to speak. So that's high courage versus high consideration. And then they do the opposite when you're low, but we won't talk about the negative. Obviously, if you can give honest feedback, but you also take the time to listen. That's creating a win-win. You share your ideas and your opinions, but you also acknowledge their feelings and their ideas and opinions. That's creating win-win situations. And that was the whole point of the lesson, is to think of ideas. So what I had to do this past week, because this is like maybe like 3 weeks ago, Max was starting to go backwards. And then 2 weeks ago, I was like, I need to do something. And I started like just putting some things in place. And then I went to this class a little over a week ago, and was like, okay, now I got the reminder. It really starts with me. Let me really slow down this next week. And I reminded Brandon the same thing. We both put a lot of effort in last week, and we're really pretty much, they're gone again, almost. I mean, I noticed this morning I was a little short and he was a little short. So he just vibes off his mom is really what it comes down to. So when he's being nasty, it's probably because I'm being nasty. Is really what it came down to. So think win-win and consider everybody. And then now our next video, when you guys see us again. Oh, go ahead.
I still have more.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
you were rushing me today. So
yeah,
rushing you back.
Making it. So here's just some takeaways that I'm going to do. So I want to share them to you in case you want some.
I just said
downers.
Slow down, which is what I did do.
Yeah. So making it their idea sounds good, but how the heck do you do it? You do it by asking them questions, right? You're guiding the conversation. You know what you want. You want your son to agree to own this job of keeping the yard clean. So how does he do it? He's asking him questions, about the yard and about how it's done, and if he wants to be the boss of that job and things like that. And then I wrote down, I'm going to have a little sit down one-on-one with each of the kids and literally apologize to them, because they're learning all this leadership stuff at such a young age that it's normal to them. This is not normal. Like, I didn't read my first Stephen Covey book until I was in my 20s, and didn't do any of this leadership training until I've recently had to with a large team. So Daddy is messed up. Daddy has not had some of these skills, and therefore has done, they're winning, win-win, learning win-win. And then they come home and Daddy's doing win-lose, because I'm the boss and you're the kid. Do as I say. And that's how I grew up. So I'm going to explain this to them in a way that's like, look,
and it's
Daddy grew up this way.
Unattractive when you're like that too. So it is probably like but I don't like when you're like that, actually. I like when you're the loving, like there is a difference. Like this morning with the whiteboard, and you guys were drawing on the whiteboard together, and you were like seriously
Because he was starting to melt down that he couldn't
but
draw
he couldn't
something.
draw something as good as his sister, who's, you know, a year and a half older than him. And actually, he's the best artist in the house. He draws better than all three of us.
And immediately, all I want to do is say, stop getting frustrated and and fix it for him by saying, you're doing this wrong, and be patient and practice. But that wouldn't have done anything.
No,
wrong.
you just
I
sat
had to
down,
stop,
took the time,
sit down with him, and actually
draw it with him and help him. And he was laughing through the whole thing, and he was like much happier.
So I just wrote that out. I'm going to explain it. And then I wrote down some ideas because we've got an acre here and there ain't no way we're doing green and clean. Not happening.
Oh, so Max wants to start his goals again.
Yeah.
And I've been saying we need to wait for Daddy so we can do it as a family.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting for Daddy. So let's get that.
So I wrote down the goals again.
It's been about a week.
Or like a chores list. And then something they do in their classroom is these buckets with tickets. So they're either filling someone's bucket and so they get to put a ticket in, or they're doing something negative and they're a dipper, right? They're dipping, so they have to take a ticket out. And if they have 10 by the end of the week, they get to get a toy out of the treasure box, which is just a bunch of tchotchke things they get to just pick from. And they really look forward to it. So I want to, take some of those ideas and implement that again, whether it's our goals thing or whatever, but taking these lessons, and because they enjoyed it. We just had like a trip and then just kind of fell off of it, but now we're definitely going to get back into it. So those are some takeaways. Simple concepts. Just practice is.
And you said apologize, and I just want to throw in there really fast. I did sit down with Max and I apologized to him because I told him that I think he was having his meltdowns and it was mostly my fault because of the way that I was just like, come on, let's go. And so like I did sit down and have an apology session with him. It was funny that you mentioned that. But yeah, and he's been asking to do goals again because he likes to feel like he's earning something. And I've been telling him we're going to do that. So we really need to do it.
I don't mean to be too dramatic, but when I apologized to him last weekend when you were at the baby shower because Max was hitting his sister, like pushing whatever. And I took that opportunity to sit down and like tell them why it bothers me so much, like that.
Oh, did you get all dark and deep with it?
A little bit.
Okay.
I explained that my stepdad used to hit my mom, and I said, have you ever seen me hit your mother? Have you ever seen me put my hands on her?
Not in front of them.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I'm telling them the story and why, like, I didn't learn. There are some things that I learned that were positive, and there's some things that I learned that were negative.
That were negative, yeah.
And why it's so important. And like the whole time I'm telling them this, they're like, I mean, they haven't sat quiet for 5 minutes. Anytime I tell them anything,
in 6
and like,
years,
I think they felt my heart. Like, well, Dad's apologizing to me, and the lesson it was effective.
It is effective. I've had conversations like that with the kids,
and
they are definitely when they hear. I think when they hear, I wish I knew what was going through their head when we tell them stories. Like, it's not like we tell them good things that happened in our past too. Like we talk about your grandfather and always praise him very well. But there's some bad stories in my childhood as well. And when I tell the kids, like they'll ask me a question and I'll just be like, do you want me to give you the sugar-coated story or do you want the truth? And Peyton's always like, I want the truth. And I'm like, okay, I think you can handle it. And I'll tell her and she'll just be like.
Sometimes I debate telling them, like, sheltering them. And then I'm like, shit, I had to live it at,
I don't want them to be so sheltered.
I had to live it at 6 years old, and I turned out all right. So if I'm just going to tell you about it, your life is cush. And,
it helps with things like how, like, viciously my mom used to pull my hair when I was little, and she knows that story. So then when I'm brushing her hair and she's whining over one little knot or something, I'll be like, it's just a knot. Like, I'm going to get it out. And she'd be like, okay, yeah, right. Like, your mom used to, like, crazily pull your hair and you're just helping me brush my hair. I got it. And she'll calm down. So they get it. All right.
Anything in closing?
No, let's get on to the next one because I like it. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. That's a big one. I like this one.
See you for the next episode on habit number 5.
Bye. Bye. That's how Max says it. Bye. Bye.